This is Tom Dillon, the Lifetime Liberal, and today is Sunday, February 12th, 2017. The title of this rant is "The Loser Has a Great Week and Also Has Great Turmoil." So this week, Betsy DeVos got through, Tom Price got through, Jeff Sessions got through. The Senate Democrats are working hard to keep them out, but they're all going to get through. Next week, he's going to have the OMB director get through. He's going to have the labor secretary get through. He's going to have a very powerful position, cabinet members who know nothing about government, whose sole purpose in life will be to destroy the agencies that they're working for. So he really did have a very good week. But amongst all of that, there was a great deal of turmoil as to what was going on in his administration. And it is showing a tremendous amount of dysfunction. It's showing a tremendous amount of childishness on his part and incompetence on the administration. And as time goes on, this will wear considerably with the American people. So let's just go through a couple of them real quick. General Michael Flynn apparently lied when he basically said that when he talked with the Russian ambassador, either right before or right after the Obama administration put sanctions on Russia for interfering with our election, that he actually had talked to them about the sanctions. And he denied it. He had Vice President Pence go out and say publicly that he had spoken to Flynn, and he denied it. The same thing with Sean Spicer. So there's a big credibility gap on that whole thing. And also, he could have broken a number of laws regarding that thing. Now, usually when something like that happens, and there's that taint of scandal, you get rid of that person right away because it can't go up to the president. That they take their lumps, they get rid of the guy, the guy gets a big job somewhere else, but it's not a problem with the president. But we're into the third day about this. That he was asked again on Tuesday or Wednesday. He said emphatically that nothing had gone on. And then the next day, a spokesperson came out for Flynn and basically said he doesn't recall whether or not the sanctions came up. And of course, the reason for this is this shows what a Dummkopf he is that, the spy agencies that we have are listening in on all these Russian conversations and listened in on it. They got the minutes of the whole thing. They know what's been going on. It's been passed around in the spy business, and they're about ready to drop this stuff and said, hey, you better start coming clean. So, not a good week for the administration on that end. The loser had a phone conversation with the Prime Minister or the Premier of China, and basically dropped the one China policy with them, which he had been talking about big time. And guess what? He got nothing in return. So much for the great negotiator. Nothing in return. Now everyone knows about the Muslim ban. He got bitch slapped 3-0. Again, why did his administration come out with it so fast? Did they actually think that they were going to ram this thing through and it would be accepted all the way through? Again, dysfunctionality, incompetence, immaturity, childishness, whatever you want to call it, on display on the Muslim ban. They may come out with something next week. We'll see what it really looks like. Another thing came out when the loser, the betrayer of trust, basically tried to bitch slap Nordstrom's about dropping his daughter's line. And Nordstrom's basically said, hey, this was business. And of course, I know about this. You get so much shelf space, you got so much floor space, 1,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet. They know every single day how much of a return they get on that square footage. And they monitor it every single day. And if you don't sell enough, you're gone. That's in the retail business, whether it's fashion or whether it's clothes or whether it's grocery stores or whatever. Auto parts, whatever. They get rid of you. So, and of course, here's the big thing, and this is important, is at the end of that day, Nordstrom's stock had gone up, which basically tells the business community his tweets aren't going to matter anymore. It's just going to be a little bit of fluff. And at the end of the day, you're still good because we're going to follow the business practices of sound business principles, which Nordstrom was practicing. Also, this week, that betrayer of trust, who is our president, spoke with Putin. Now, whenever you have these high-level, direct conversations, like with the Premier of China, with Vladimir Putin, you know what you're going to talk about ahead of time. And if you're president, you sort of hone in on what it is that you're going to talk about so you don't look like a stupid idiot. And the people underneath you tell you all the things that you're supposed to talk about, where you're going to stand, what type of, what our position is, how we're going to get this conversation from one end to the other end. They know this stuff. But that loser had to stop the conversation, put Putin on hold to find out what was going on and what the START treaty was all about, and then came back on and said because it was initiated or it was agreed, was something that Obama favored, that he was going to be against it. And of course that again wears thin with the international community because they know that you don't know what you're talking about. Another thing, Kellyanne Conway came out and talked about a Bowling Green massacre. Thought you could get away with it. There was no Bowling Green massacre. If you want to say it was a lie, yes. If you want to say that it was an excessive exaggeration, then you could say that. A serial provocator, you could say that too. But basically, there was no Bowling Green massacre. And then she tried to say that she was just they jumped on her for one little mistake. And of course, she had said it on 2 other separate occasions. So she knew what she was talking about. And of course, again, the president does not seem to have any problem with this type of stuff. Another thing that happened this week, 6 New England Patriots, after their great Super Bowl come-from-behind victory, have indicated that they will not be attending go to the White House, where it's very normal for a couple months afterwards. The president invites everyone in. They have a couple of yayas. They get their pictures taken. It's all great. 6 New England Patriots have already said they're not coming. One of them is a white guy, Chris Long, has already said that. I wonder if there'll be more. But again, it's just these little things that keep adding up all the time. Now, in terms of the Congress, now we've had a lot of these town halls where there's been a lot of disruptions with the Republicans there. There's been a lot of yelling and screaming. Now, Jason Chaffetz, I'll use an example of him from Utah, has basically said, those are outside agitators. They were shipped in. They were paid by George Soros, all that kind of stuff. And they use that for fundraising and all that other stuff. But at the same time, all of these Republicans who have had a lot of people at their town halls, the ones who've skipped their town halls, who went in and out, whatever they did, they know what's going on. They're not stupid people. They know that there's no outside agitators. They know that it's homegrown. And they know that when it starts to affect their polling, when it starts to affect their popularity and their chances of re-election, that they will have to change their tune. Now, they're going to play hardball as much as they can. They're going to try and get as much money. They're going to appeal to their base. But deep down inside, they know that once it starts affecting them, that they will change their tune. And they're watching very closely the popularity of Mr. Minority. So once his popularity is down far enough, they can break away from him also. 2 other quick things. Jennifer Rubin, whom I love, writer for the Washington Post, very conservative. She can go far out there. Yes, she's very conservative. I understand her principles. I understand her grand plan for living. She is a conservative. She has been all over Mr. Minority just for a lot of these things that I've talked about and many, many more. Now, the thing is, okay, well, not that many people write the Washington Post. It's a liberal rag. She's the conservative part of the liberal rag, so to speak. But again, she's one of many. And as things go south for Mr. Minority, their voices will be greater heard. Last thing I just want to mention quickly, the wall that's going to be built, supposedly going to be built. At first, Mr. Minority said it would be, I don't know how much, $8 billion. Then the Republicans said it's going to be $14 or $15 billion. Now, Congressional Budget Office, someone came out, basically said it's going to be about $21 to $22 billion. That's before the fact that we know there's going to be cost overruns and all that other kind of stuff. And Mr. Minority, goes ahead and brags that he hasn't gotten involved in negotiations. And we're going to bring it down to $8 billion. Now, again, just by all the other things that I've talked about just now, he doesn't know what's really going on in terms of how many miles it is, how much fencing there has to be, how much delivery time there has to be to bring this stuff to build a wall in very obscure places in our southern border. He doesn't know any of that stuff. So for him to say that it's going to be $8.8 billion, again, his credibility has gone down. So just to recap a little bit, he has a very strong base. That base is behind him. They're willing to follow him. And they are also willing to push the Republicans in Congress towards his positions. Because at first it was the Republicans thought that they could work their base and that they could work the loser towards their position. But now it's looking like the real conservatives in the Republican base are just so much for Mr. Minority. So they will follow him. But the big thing is that this Mr. Minority, the betrayer of trust, his credibility is gone down. And when his poll numbers go down, and when the GOP in the House and the Senate, their poll numbers come down, then you're going to have that circular firing squad. And then you're going to see a lot of trouble in those areas. And two things that are going to come up is, number one, I'd like to point out one thing. He hasn't done a single thing in reference to jobs. He did make a big thing about Intel being in this week. They had that plant on the books from about 2011. But in terms of any jobs for any Americans, he hasn't come out with anything. He hasn't even come out with remotely some of the things that he'd like to do. So this was a great week for him. At the same time, there's some trouble in River City, and it will continue.